Hello, everybody. I don't have a good fade out on the music because I realized that's not something that OBS has built in. Didn't think about that, but it doesn't matter because we're here and we are ready to tell you some epic tales of adventure and glory. Hello, everybody. You'll notice I'm not the Strife player. I'm not running this game. I mean, I'm running the stream stuff, but what else? So, hello, everybody. Hello, chat. Welcome in. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, wonderful players, for being here. This week, we're still continuing to support local arts organizations. However, we are supporting a different organization for the 3-week run, which we think is fairly thematically named, at least, for the sort of story that we'll be telling, which is the Driftwood Players. If I'm going to pass it over to Dan, I think, to tell us a little bit about them.
Sure. I'd be happy to. Driftwood Players is one of Washington's oldest community theaters. They've been around for over 60 years, and they're consisting of volunteers who give up their time and their talents simply for the love of the arts in their community. Let's see, Edmonds itself is just north of Seattle, and it's one of the Driftwood is part of the community there, and it's one of the few really remaining theaters in the region that truly offers a space for mid-range productions. Both Cheryl and myself have worked there. They're in a really difficult place with COVID. They've canceled multiple productions throughout their season, including one I was directing, and it was very traumatic to have to leave. Their future is very uncertain, so I'm personally very grateful to you for your donations during this run of Agon that we're doing, and I will also add that they are a 501c3 nonprofit, so your donation to them may be tax deductible depending on where you live and the laws in your area. Please do not write on your tax returns that Dan said it was okay. Do your own homework, but
I mean, that's what I write on all my tax return forms, just in case you were wondering. Just like Dan said, it was fine.
I just tell donors to call Dan.
I'm fine.
I'm going to get audited to smithereens.
Splashed a lot of water on my face while you were giving this very profound and emotional speech, and I'm just slurping.
That's an omen. It is an omen of what is to come.
Yeah, very profesh here. So thank you. Cool. So we're going to be playing Agon, and this is an RPG system from Evil Hat Games. If you're unfamiliar with them, they are the makers of such games as Blades in the Dark or Fate. What else have they done? They've done some Cthulhu ones. They've done a whole bunch. They're a great organization, but they also recently finished the Roll20 sheets, which their Roll20 sheets are always very good. So we're going to be utilizing Roll20 for this, which is also nice because it means we have to do slightly fewer mathematical calculations. So eventually we'll be popping over to a different scene where we'll have cool Roll20 sheets on there. But Agon is a RPG system that's all about telling sort of very Greek myth inspired stories with epic heroes, although that does not necessarily mean they're good people. They're just people who do heroic things or actions in the heroic scope.
Big things.
Big things might be a way to describe it. I'm not suggesting that any of us are not perhaps the good guy here. So, if you would like to help us, you are now welcome. You're taking part in this game, whether you like it or not, because this is a Greek story, which means you are the chorus. And you are able to give us a bond. And in this system, a bond is basically a bonus die that we can add to our roll that hopefully means we're more likely to succeed and to not suffer. And none of us wishes to suffer. So please, your donations can go directly towards corresponds, but alternatively, perhaps you don't like us, which is very sad, but could be true, and you prefer Tony most of all, and more specifically, you want to sow discord and malcontent by giving donations that might impact the Divine's view of us and our world. So I believe there are goals that they can work towards that will unlock the next god for the next island. And also possibly provide you with divine wrath. I don't remember if we set that up or not.
It's so a little. I'm gonna change that a little bit.
Okay.
Citizens of Twitch, there are two gods that you may tithe to during this adventure. Depending on the hero's choice, they may choose the path of one of these gods and follow their signs. And early on, you'll get some omens about what these gods want. Hermes and Athena are the two gods tonight. You can go ahead right now and tithe to your favorite god. Whichever god has received the most tithes, if the heroes are acting in their favor, you might be helping them. They might get advantage dice of divine favor for that. However, if they're acting outside the interest of these gods, which on this island may have some opposition, there in fact will be divine wrath targeting them that they will have to suffer. But the good thing is that just means more glory for the heroes. So don't make their lives easy on them.
Oh, I really hate this. I had no idea you had set that up.
Oh yeah.
So
look, we gotta mess with people somehow.
And if both gods have received tithes, then both will matter, right? You don't. You want your favorite god, of course, to be on top, as all good Greeks would. That doesn't mean the second god, if they've received a bunch of tithing, they will maybe even show up at some point.
I'm just saying, whenever the gods get involved in Greek stories, it doesn't end well for anyone except the gods. So it's going to be great. It's going to be great. Give us those bonds, please. We need them.
Nope.
We have 0 currently. I'll show you that on the next scene. Well, with all of that information, we'll explain how parts of the system work as we go through. We're obviously all learning it still, so as things come up, there may be questions. We'll see what happens. But let's introduce everybody, and then we will end with Tony, who will be our Strife player. So let's start with Dan. Don't worry about introducing your character.
Okay.
I think we'll do, because that's kind of the first challenge, right? Yeah. Oh, hey, look, John Harper's here. Hi, John. We're going to break it. We're messing it up. I'm so sorry.
I'm Dan Poslins, at Dan Poslins. My pronouns are he, him. I am a video game developer in the Seattle area. I also perform, direct, and improvise in the area. And I'm really excited to see what the fates have in store for me and my character tonight.
All right, next, Janine.
Hi, I am at Admiral Asma on Twitch and the Twitter. She, hers. My real name's Janine, and I'm a fundraiser in theater by day and also a local actress and improviser in the Seattle area, ensemble member with Unexpected Productions. And what did I miss?
I think
that's
everything. Yeah.
That's it.
You got it.
Yeah,
you got it. All right, Cheryl. Front and center.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cheryl Platt, aka Muppets Aphrodite, and I'm on all the socials, the TikToks, and the Twitters. I'm a user experience designer by day, based in the Seattle area, naturally. And by night, I'm a performer, often with these great folks at Unexpected Productions, and on Twitch on Sunday mornings, doing lots of puppetry and nerd things. So nice to meet you all. My personal pronouns are she, her. My characters are they, them.
Awesome. I'm Random Tuesday. This is my channel. Thanks for being here. Hit that follow button. Claudia.
Hi, my name's Claudia, but on Twitch and Twitter, I go by Jackie Dash, JAKIDASH. I am so excited to be here on Video with Nerd Prom.
And you're done. All right. And Tony,
well, yeah.
I will have you take it away with who you are and then lead us into this epic tale.
Yes, I am Tony Beeman of Seattle. My muse is Talia, for I am, in fact, a thespian. I perform in many goat plays, tragedies, as you call them. I'm an improviser. My pronouns are he, him, or them, they. And I'm very excited to be here playing this game with all of you. And as Lauren said, you are our chorus tonight. That means you might be the oarsmen who carry our heroes. You might be their bondsmen. You might be villagers on the island. So anytime you give us a bond, you're giving them some help. And we'll see, we might see you make an appearance in one of these scenes. So to set us off, we need to ask the muse to tell us the story of these heroes who, having angered Ceto, mother of all sea monsters, have found themselves pursued across the sea by her daughter, Cataclysmos. And it was one night when Nyx's blanket covered the sky that Cataclysmos did come upon their trireme and tear it asunder, sending oarsmen into the mists and all their treasures that they have gathered up into the depths of Poseidon's bed. Heroes, tell us how you escaped from that moment where you found yourselves sinking into the darkness of the ocean, your oarsmen and sailors screaming around you, how you rescued yourselves and maybe some of them from what had come to pass. I shall start and say this. Let's ask Zenon. How do you answer this terrible tragedy?
When Zenon pops back up over the surface of the water after being plunged into the cold darkness, they take stock of the situation and see floating nets that were used for catching food, and quickly using their mechanical skills, it fashions sort of border for the nets along the net, so that a border with wood. So there's sort of a hoop of wood with net inside, so that folks can climb over and sort of at least kind of gather together in a space buoyed by the wood itself. So there's essentially sort of waterlogged raft, and a few sailors come on board as Zenon is continuing to bring in pieces of wood to shore up the borders of the raft.
All right, and since you're the leader, I'm going to let you set the domain this is. You've sort of made the decision here. We'll find a new leader at the end of this contest. And it sounds like you're using craft and reason to me to overcome what Cataclysmos has done to your ship. So I'm going to make a roll as the Strife player. And the target number is going to be 13, which means we're going to have each of you roll. And that will tell us whether you, the heroes, suffer. Which, you're Greek heroes, so it's great to suffer. You'll pathos, which brings sympathy to the audience and your readers and who hear about your stories from here on will love your pathos if you suffer. But you might succeed and bring great glory to your name. So craft and reason, the target is 13. Let's see how you all do.
I think we all need to announce our involvement
yes.
in the trial. Yes.
Yes, we've heard Zenon. So, Charistus, do you?
Stout-legged Charistus, seeing what Zenon will be doing, knows that this is the wisest course of action. He will be supporting her, lending her his bond.
Great. And I believe here we have Betty or Nim.
Clever-eyed Batir, daughter of Medusa and Poseidon, calls out to Hecate to aid her in controlling the water and using the water to pull back the sailors who were lost, and digging them up from further in the depths and bringing them to the surface.
Great. And Alecto.
Alecto, the pure-hearted daughter of the island of Simi, is unfaltering, does not falter, as she is going to support Batir in gathering all the people, because it's not a ship without its sailors.
A suasive-voiced Ligea looks about, seeing the floundering sailors, and remembers back to better days where she was also watching floundering sailors drown slowly in the dark waters, but knows that at this moment she herself is also drowning slowly in the dark waters, and so will begin to rally them into the craft that is being made as she attempts to convince them that they maybe should not die.
Excellent. Having announced your intentions to try to escape this fate, I'll have you all make your rolls using craft and reason. And in a minute, audience, you shall meet your heroes and learn more about them as we hear about how they succeed or fail, how they suffer or persevere. Just gonna wait for all these rolls to come in.
I'm not adding pathos. I don't have any other dice. Not spending divine favor.
And I'm going to take the time to explain. Pathos is, of course, it is, as I mentioned, that quality of sort of suffering, of pity. And our heroes can take some amount of it. In fact, they may even gain some boon as they gain it. But if they gain too much, they enter agony. As they enter agony, they may start to burn fate and they sort of grow ever closer to their final fate, in which they will die, and their name will be remembered only by what they've done before then. Am I seeing everybody's role here?
Did you, Janine, did you add my D6 for support, my 1d6?
I did not.
Okay, cool.
I will re-roll.
So as a supporting character, glory might not be mine, but I do gain a support token, and I do help and support Baltier in hopefully gathering the crew.
Yes.
I appreciate that. Batir notices and is very, very pleased by that.
Yeah. It is a good thing. So let's find out what happened. We are going to start with Ligea, who has suffered in this contest.
Ligea is small and sort of wayfish looking. They're her sort of bird-like features. Her face is fairly narrow. Her pointed and sharp. Her eyes almost rounder than you might expect. Bronze skin with her hair. What is normally pulled back into sort of lovely dark ringlets is just sopping wet, like drenched around the side of her face as she's like trying to swim. And as much as she tries to cry out to the sailors to encourage them to get in the boat, she keeps going, "Get in the blah 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 blah, get it blah 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 blah." As she like sort of swims up from the water and then goes underneath as, you know, the swirling fabric of her chiton swirls around her in the dark depths of the sea, and it is all that she can do to keep her head above the water.
Attempts to comfort the sailors would have already been difficult, because the sailors are terrified of Ligea.
I don't know why.
They whisper rumors of her past and what she may have done to sailors, and you merely terrify them more as they are dragged down to Poseidon's depths every time you reappear. Next up, I believe, is Beth. Oh no, we re-rolled that one. So Zenon.
Yes.
Yes.
So Zenon welcomes Charistus's help, and they go as fast as they can, trying to assemble more wood. But as they craft this makeshift raft, more and more sailors pile on, and they are unable to keep up with the sheer mass of sailors piling on to the center net. And so it ends up dragging everyone down. And of course, the net with the wood attached is slightly more treacherous than if you were just floating on your own. So it requires more effort to swim clear of the failed raft, which was working for just a moment before the crew started piling in en masse. So everyone is left to fend for themselves, and Zenon is more tired and worse off for the effort.
The sailors trust you, Zenon. They look at you and your strong body, who provided them with comfort, and they've come to know you in these months as somebody who has rigged the sails in amazing ways, I believe, and who always has an answer. And so they fully trust you, and they climb into your boxes and are let down when the boxes sink and fail. And they sink beneath the waves, still shouting your name.
Zenon, blah, 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 blah.
Fortunately, we have a better, a prevailing role, I believe, from Betier Nim.
Yes.
Betier, tell us about who you are and what you do.
Yes. So Betir steps forward and using her parentage of Poseidon, calls on the water to do her bidding. And luckily, Zenon has already kind of built this raft, and so I think Betir harnesses the sea to and the net and the raft to pull the sailors up and any other who floated off. And she's very striking. She has this like striking green cloak and long golden hair and pale skin that just looks a little bit green in the light. And so she is able to rise the water, one particular part of the water, enough to pull the sailors back onto the deck. And then, I mean, that's the extent of her power, and the water goes back to normal.
Yes, perhaps it is your prayer to Poseidon because the water seems to stop. Or perhaps it is that Ceto, mother of sea monsters, recognizes something in you. She takes some amount of pity upon you. But either way, your prayers are enough to drag everybody remaining onto a small bit of the ship, which is not yet sunk. And you gather about it. It's more flotsam than ship at this point. And you grasp on it. You pull the rest of you up. Betir, you receive glory for this.
Yes.
The challenge of 13, you'll get 13 glory. This glory is very important. The more glory you get, the stronger your name shall be. Already, the surviving sailors, even as they cry, you hear them whispering your name. You know that those who survive will tell tales of how this happened.
This pleases Betir, who gives glory to Hecate and Poseidon, and is like, "Thank you."
Yes, those of you who suffered still gain one glory, for you survived this, where most mortals would have perished almost certainly, even if you lost many of your oarsmen. But you have a few who remain as you float adrift until one of them shouts, "There is land! There's land just there." And the dawning sunrise comes up, and you do in fact see an island appear out of the mists. It's got a single large hill upon it, and on that hill is some great stone edifice, some structure. It looks massive, and below at the top of the hill is some sort of city. You've never heard of it. You of course have no maps of this area. You don't even know where you are, having been pursued so far by Cataclysmos. You know not what this place is, but it's close enough that you are able to eventually make your way to the shores of this island. And Betir, as the victor of this first contest, you may either choose to sort of take the lead, or you may appoint somebody else to convince everybody to follow the lead of.
Betir will lead. She feels Poseidon at her back and feels confident that she can master this island.
All right. What do you do?
Do we have any existing rowboats that what's the damage of our ship?
You literally have you know how triremes have that wooden battering ram sort of, I don't know the name of it. You're on that in the bow of your ship, and there's a wooden half of a wooden mermaid still attached as the figurehead.
Great.
Ligea looks back and just is like, I think we need a boat.
Betir turns to the sailors and says, "Worshippers of Poseidon, it would seem that our ship is requiring some minor repairs before we embark yet again. Let us to this island where we may make camp, hew some trees, plane some wood, cure the wood, stay in the wood, and rebuild our boat eventually.
I'm just so happy that we survived together, that together we lived. All hail the gods for their just and perhaps necessary cleaning of our crew to survive.
You have a sense that some of the gods are pleased and some are angry that you're including everybody more generally rather than worshiping them specifically, and that overall you've only achieved a sort of neutral result.
I feel like I just sort of imagine up on Olympus is like, no, she was talking about me. No, I'm pretty sure she was talking about me. And just, actually, I think it was about me.
Satir, my heart fills with fire hearing of the challenge we have before us. You have my hammer.
To be clear, are we entering a contest now in order to arrive at the land?
Not just yet. You've managed to get the oarsmen. You once had your trireme had like 99 oarsmen on either side. So you were about 200 strong. You're now about 15 strong. You've got like a few oarsmen and your cook left.
When you say left, do you mean drowned?
No, the ones that survive.
We have a cook left.
And
the cook left.
Headhunted.
You managed
to did get headhunted.
You drag a few supplies. You're heroes, so you were all wearing your armor, I assume. I leave that to you. But you have no treasure left. None of your spoils of your previous adventures, which we may learn about later, have survived, I'm afraid.
Charistus is extremely frustrated by this whole endeavor. He is actually a centaur who normally keeps his back half hidden underneath his flowing chiton. But with the entire drowning thing happening, he hasn't been able to do that, and he's currently taking up a lot of space in his enlarged form on the deck of what remains. And he's kind of doing the thing where like a dog shakes the water off of them a lot. He's frustrated that they were less successful than they had hoped in reassembling the boat.
Charistus, I will say this as you shake off, you see on the sky a sign from the gods. In fact, between all of you, I think I'm sorry, Electo, you having caught up with the gods are also looking up. You both see different things. Charistus, what you see is an owl carrying a parchment in its claw high above a circling flock of common ravens. It's holding the scroll aloft, keeping it safe. Electa, you see a small bee-eater, a bird you know to be favored by Hermes, stealing honey from a royal bee's nest and feeding that honey to its young, suggesting perhaps that wealth should be shared among the commoners.
I do believe I see what's known as a headwig up there. There is clearly a message in wait for us from the gods themselves.
Have we made it to land yet, or are we sort of bouncing?
Okay. You have in fact arrived on shore, and I will say, as the oarsmen gather, you notice a pillar of smoke. Maybe how long is a league? A league, I'm just going to imagine a league or two. You have no idea what direction, but in one way there is smoke.
I think we ought to find the source of the smoke because there should be civilization on this island if there's fire, and they may have ways for us to repair our ship faster.
That would be ideal. Ligea, it looks just like a cat, like when you give them a bath, just like it drags herself out of the water and just looks up. It's like, is this what drowning is like? It's awfully unpleasant. I almost feel bad for the poor souls.
sailors look uncomfortable. The remaining oarsmen look uncomfortable and move away
Let
from you.
us travel. That here is like, my sailors. All right.
All right. You do you leave your oarsmen here to sort of collect things, or do you bring them with you?
Yeah. But we have the chef, right?
You would bring the chef.
You take the
No,
ship.
I think they should make themselves some lunch.
Oh. Oh no.
I think they should eat.
That's
Like
fair.
you, chef, you like gather what edible, safe food you can. Feed yourselves, for there will be quite a lot of work to do. Meanwhile, our hero shall go and find the source of fire.
Even though-
insists on taking a moment to help the chef set up just so, with a little fire and space for some to keep food above the fire, and wants to make sure. Take care of yourselves.
Charistus eyes the owl in the sky suspiciously, and then crunches his rear hooves back up against him, and lowers his chiton down, and he walks very slowly forward, following Betir towards the town.
Charistus, what do you make of the owl in the sky?
It is clearly a message from the gods, and we are fools to ignore it, if you were to ask me, which you did.
But what does it mean?
Well, it's a message printed on parchment, from what I can tell. At this distance, I cannot read it, though.
Betir does not care for Athena, and seeing her messenger pulls. Is the owl still in the sky?
Yes, it's spinning around as if Athena wants to make sure you see it.
Mm-hmm. Pulls a small knife from her belt and is about to draw back to throw the knife, and she will throw if no one stops her.
Wait, hark, hold. And I think at this point, Alecto, who is sitting and I don't know, counting seashells, stands up and just tumbles forward and says, "Hark, we should stop, and perhaps we should catch it, for to hurt Athena is to hurt our mission." And with that, I think I will try to use a net.
Yeah. You convince Betir. She reluctantly sheathes her dagger, but is in agreement with you.
Besides, it would be a shame to waste such a weapon.
And Alecto,
You have a sense that something very terrible almost happened this day, but you.
I look up between the owl and then over at Betir, and up at the owl and Betir. You are going to slay a messenger of the gods?
Betir turns to Charistus and just is quietly is like, "Look, you don't understand who she is and what she does.
I don't understand.
All of this is going on, and there's lots of gesturing and Betir being like, "Fuck that."
I feel like while they're doing that and Alecto's messing around with this net,
big net, rolling it out,
just
coiling it back,
waves up at the owl and then makes a couple of bird noises.
and then with
Woo!
The bird, obviously having been seen, flies upward and disappears. I feel
That seems right.
Evil Hat didn't really provide direction for what to do if you kill the signs of the gods that they were sent at the beginning. But I have a couple of ideas that might not be good.
It would be in our wheelhouse, I think.
So it sounds like you've chosen to travel north toward the smoke.
We just got distracted by an owl.
You make your way up. Thank you, Crown. It sounds like that's about 14 miles in our modern speech.
That's a long way.
2 leagues you travel. And as you get there, the fire is still going. In fact, you see that there are about 5 soldiers gathered around. They're throwing parchments onto a fire. Oddly, though, they all have the signet of Athena. They have an owl upon their armor, on their shoulders. Two of them are holding back a group of maybe about 20. They look like farmers to you. They have like vine dressing knives and other farming implements about them, but no other real weaponry. But they're shouting at the guards, like, "How dare you!" And those are our truths.
I approach the soldiers, guards, whatever they are, and I say, gentle people, I am Betir Nim.
Oh, several of them recognize your name from your many exploits. Betir Nim here?
We find
Here
ourselves on your island.
On Cinemosia? You've come here to Cinemosia. It's Betir Nim. Soldiers like speak among themselves, and they seem very impressed but nervous.
Tell me what you are doing with those parchments.
We are burning them, of course.
And I hear...
But why?
Yes.
Well, our queen, Everette, has said that it is Athena's decree that these corrupted parchments be burned, for they have been scribed upon it by people who lack the knowledge of Apollo or the wisdom of Athena. The farmers...
How could they scribe such things if they lacked knowledge and wisdom to begin with? It takes knowledge and wisdom to scribe. Charistus attempts to take one of the parchments in order to look it over.
The farmers cheer, like, yes, the horseman speaks true.
But a little table talk, I'm currently hidden, so...
The the human speaks true. Surely this must be the great Charistus, who has been known to travel with Betir Nim. Oh,
I am Charistus. I'm
platonic.
Yes.
I'm
not that
good
Charistus,
friend.
though.
We write our own truths. the celestial spheres are flat, for instance. We know that. We know that.
Dear.
Athena's people lie. They control us with their knowledge.
Zenon slinks over to the soldiers who are working on the bonfire, especially after that little monologue, and just looks at the fire appraisingly and says, "You know, you can get 20% more fire out of that. Just adjust 2 or 3 things. Just move. You see how that rock just so and just can't help but help them optimize the fire."
The soldier's more concerned about the peasants who become angrier by the moment, the farmers, I should say. And he sort of allows you to, and you probably, being an amazing Greek follower of Hephaestus as you are, you immediately succeed in burning the parchments with greater heat and lesser fuel other than the parchment itself. Papyrus, I should say.
Christus,
great bonfire.
Christus's old wizened eyes scurry over the parchment that he has, and he grumbles, flat celestial spheres.
Yes, they try to bloodlet our children before they will allow them to be around other children. We don't believe in bloodletting of children. Our children's humors are just fine without it.
They sound like they're very opinionated, but not necessarily educated.
Yes, I'm familiar with their tribe. It is difficult. They often are at odds with local healers and other...
I'm assuming drowning them is not an option, so have you considered educating them?
Or giving them productive work. Once the heart is full of work, the heart has no room for frivolous notions.
The soldiers nod. They say they have productive work. Their job is to grow the papyrus so that our scholars may put words upon it and add them to our great library.
That is how it is done.
Yes, thank you, Charistus. They have abdicated their role in our society to provide the parchment, but not to provide the knowledge. They're fools, they're idiots. They don't deserve to put words upon paper. They're lower born.
But wait, perhaps they have more knowledge than just science and reason. Perhaps they could make interesting stories on this paper. And I don't think we should just banish all their thoughts and whims, because truly the chance to write is more important than perhaps what is on the paper. Maybe, and I think now, like, I'd like to say Electo flutters over to Valtier. There's like a little lightness of like, perhaps we could talk to the queen and maybe we could get some kind of understanding where they maybe are not scientists, but...
Yes, she's right. We can tell our own stories, like how we kick the ass of these guards. And the farmers all come rushing forward.
Your thought process, you should stop talking before you make it worse for yourselves. But I feel like they're already descending.
The farmers are rushing forward. They have their vine dressing knives out and their tools. And they outnumber there are about 20 of the farmers. They outnumber the guards by quite a bit. You're sort of standing probably close to the soldiers since you're working on the fire. Betty or Nim, how do you plan to approach this challenge?
Clever-eyed Batir will lean over to Charistus and say, would you like to, or would you like me to?
You're going to have to be more specific.
Fine. Batir steps forward and says to the farmers, loyal farmers, do not, harm these guards. We will take your plight to the queen for discussion and see if there is a remedy that we all may find acceptable.
Right. So you are going to use words to try to calm these farmers.
Yeah.
Zenon, will you join her in this?
Ironbender Zenon will lend what little convincing power they have.
Yes. And Charistus?
Charistus will face this challenge not with words, but with the might of the pen.
Very well. Lecto, do you answer this challenge?
Yes, Electo the Pure-Hearted, with the support of Hera, will reason with the guards and perhaps make it so that they attack less violently. I'm going to lament to the guards instead of the people.
Oh, I see. And Ligea?
Ligea, assuasive voiced Ligea, she is assuasive and will attempt to assuade them from their current path, or dissuade them, that perhaps convincing them through argument that their choices are terrible and they should go home and rethink their lives.
All right. I think the farmers are going to, you're posing them with your arts and oration because they are the most angry. The guards don't seem really excited about killing the farmers. Although they do like burning the parchment a lot. The farmers are pretty angry, but they merely sort of rely on their own mob mentality and a little bit of their own ignorance, which give them an extra die, and they get a 10. It's an arts and oration 10. So let me have you all roll to see how you meet this challenge.
Now that I know the domain, is it possible to take pathos so I can use my own domain?
Yes, a hero may meet a challenge that has a domain, which since Bettier sort of chose at the beginning, she chose the domain this competition, arts and oration. But if you, there are 4 domains in this game. There's arts and oration, there's blood and valor, there's craft and reason, and spirit and resolve. So Electo may choose to spin pathos to sort of bring in one of her extra talents into this competition.
Okay, I will.
I am going to call on the divine favor of Hera for this. I'm not invoking a bond, but merely utilizing Hera's cunning to observe the farmers and think perhaps faster than them to, again, convince them to go home and rethink their lives. You don't want to be here anymore.
Yes. So Lauren's going to throw an extra. I believe that's
it's a D4 because it's not a bond. It's just divine favor.
Yeah, I did it with Hera too. So.
And I am going to let you know. I think I've put that in, but we have a couple of bonds from the chorus. Yes. You notice that, in fact, it looks like I'm learning Tiltify right now.
Yeah.
So, while you make those rolls, I can see donors. Let me ask you guys, how do I know?
Probably the dashboard. Or go to donations.
Mm-hmm. If you just roll,
I see.
Like to scroll down.
I have the polls here. I can see the polls. I'm just trying to make
this
sure
is
I understand
happening.
what people. Yeah.
So we start with the last one, which is Zenon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So Zenon, you have. It looks like. Well, I'll let you tell us.
So Zenon still believing that they don't need to involve the divine in this particular dispute, but feeling a little extra help would be to enhance their oration. Throws a little extra kindling onto the fire to make it more fiery behind them as they try to convince everyone to calm down. However, this results in a slight charring, just a little bit of an unexpected burn at the tips of their hair, and that deflates the value of Zenon's oration to the point where they didn't quite land the message.
The farmers cheer out at your conflagration. They're like, yes, Hephaestus' daughter brings the fire of the forge to this competition. We are twice as angry. Next up we have, let's hear how it went for Clever-Eyed Betier.
Betier appeals to the farmers, and she does not call upon assistance from her father because she already did that earlier in the day, and she doesn't like to call dad too much. But she does, pull what empathy she can in her chest, and just appeals to them to, like, please let us discuss this in peace. We will bring your plight. And the farmers seem to, take that into consideration.
Yes, they see that perhaps you might be a champion for them. They are also a little afraid of you, so they like this idea that you might speak up on their behalf. So yes, they nod along, and while they still seem a little angry, we hear what Charistus has done.
Charistus presents as old. He has white pointy beard, and his eyes are old and wizened. He reaches beneath his white chiton and brings forth what cannot be mistaken for anything but the rod of Asclepius, a wooden staff with a snake that curls around it. Oh. As he holds it aloft, he listens for Apollo's divine wisdom, and then uses the staff to break off tiny little bits of embers from the fire. He gathers them up and then reaches in under his chiton and produces a quill, which he then dips into the red ink that he has made from the ash and soot. And he grabs the various parchments and he X's out all of the things that have been written and writes D minus on them. And then he hands them out to the farmers so that they can see how they have failed in their ability to be rational and wise about the ways of the universe.
Yes, you raise your staff of is Aeoclus, I believe? Asclepius, which is not mistaken, as it often is for Hermes Catechus, because it does not have the wings.
Not the same.
But this one time it is not mistaken. They all know that is Apollo, and Apollo stands for knowledge. And they think twice as your writing shows them that perhaps their own writings are mistaken. They seem concerned, and now we hear from...
See me after class.
Oh. Delta minor.
I believe we only have one roll left, right? From
it's Electo and then
Electo. Sorry, Electo. Yes.
And Ligea.
Yeah.
So Electo, Electo, the pure-hearted, the daughter of the island of Simi, with support from Demeter as divine favor, steps forward to the guards and is just like, well, you don't have to hit them hard. I think that they have ideas, and perhaps we could grow those ideas and we could together create something. And as she's kind of narrating, they decide to use the blunt side of their swords, is my hope, as Demeter's grace just comes from her big blue brown eyes and her smiling 16-year-old face as she just kind of is nice.
They all just sort of soften a little bit as they run forward a little bit further, ever slower, thanks to the previous acts. And they seem calm at last. They're like, yeah, maybe she's right. Maybe we shouldn't kill them. It would be glorious, but maybe it could be glorious for us to be nice. Maybe we shall be known as the nice farmers of Cinemosia and go down in legend that way. Yeah. And at last, we come on to the greatest success of Ligea.
Ligea stands in front of all of them as they sort of start thinking, maybe we could be nice, as they have received their grades from Charistus and sort of feel the shame of failure, and looks each and every one of them in the eye. But she's called upon the favor of Hera, and Hera is cunning and spiteful. Let's be honest, Hera's spiteful, and Ligea identifies the leader, whichever one seems to be the most in charge of this group of farmers, and looks at them and sees deep into the very heart of their fundamental insecurities, and says quietly and softly to them, "You know that you just wish to do this because you are doubting your own intelligence. Perhaps you should go home and consider that murdering these people will simply mean they will murder you back. Don't do that in public. That's how you get caught."
The leader appears to be an elderly lady with 2 vine dressing knives, and she's kind of rushing forward with all of them, and she stops and says, But I'm just scared for my grandchildren. The scholar's bloodlet them, and what if the bloodletting hurts them?
But what if the bloodletting doesn't hurt them? And then you have chosen that it is better that you are right and they die than to listen to reason and science.
You're right about this. I don't think these soldiers are right, but you're right that we are being too hasty in attacking them for now. Very well. Come, we shall turn back and go back to our farms for now. If, as Bettier said, you will take our case before the Queen.
Oh, I suppose yes. That's what you said. She looks at Bettier.
I cannot promise anything, of course, but we will mention it to the Queen.
The soldiers slide their swords back, and everybody is amazed by Ligea's speech. It will be talked of on this island for a long time, assuming people live.
There's a lot of like disgruntled like wives being like, "Don't do that in public. That's how you get caught."
Like both the somehow you
deaths.
like you spoke with such passion. Both the soldiers and the farmers believe you were kind of taking their side, and they're all impressed. The soldiers put their swords back in. They even kind of let go the singeing of their hair. I think they have those helmets with the big flumes.
The shoe polisher on the top.
Spartan flumes, yeah.
That's the official name, right?
They haven't noticed that like a big chunk of them's burned out in the back. Just like,
Lips.
they say, if you spoke true, Betty or Nim, if you would speak to our queen, she probably will be giving audience right now at the library on the top of the hill.
Perfect. We shall go and seek her audience.
Yes, come with us. I shall take you to see the Queen and the great librarian Willem the Gaul. And with that, I think we've arrived at the time for our first break.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back. And I will help Tony
we have
understand how
donations announcements?
Tiltify works. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have any to read, or do you want to?
I will read the announcements, and I can also say I do know that Athena is currently ascendant with 80% of the tithing over Hermes, who has but 20%, which is still a tithe. Hermes is definitely paying attention to what's going on. Thank you to BP Phantom. Says, on the outs with the gods, need tribute to pay your way back into their good graces? Stab and Terry has a deal for you. Athena's combo offerings. That's right. 1 liquid offering and 1 food offering. Upgrade to a deluxe combo and get some meat too. Stab and Terry is owned by Ares Macrotech.
Oh my god.
I miss Stab and Terry.
I love that we're playing a game again that involves giving money to...
I know, right?
Yeah.
We thank you, Anonymous. We have from William. Happy to see us all again. Thank you. Happy to see you. Anonymous says happy to be here and to help. And Demolition. Good luck tonight, everyone. May the show be a most divine experience. This is Greek mythology, so divine experience may not be good, but it'll be interesting.
It'll be fine.
So thank you all so much from us and from Driftwood, and we'll see you after a quick break.
All right, be right back.
You ready?
we have returned. I will pass it over to Tony.
Yes. We've reviewed the mythology and looked at Herodotus' history, and it turns out the chorus was 5 members strong at this point in our story. So thank you, chorus. Know that they are available to be your bondsmen in a way, bondswomen or bondspeople, as you choose. And where we left, you were being brought by these soldiers who bear Athena's owl upon their shoulder and who serve Queen Everete to a great library on a hill. And this library is it's magnificent. It towers above almost any building you've ever seen. Certainly any palace or statue to some god. And even from outside, you can see inside that there are many scroll books, like bindings of papyrus rolled up with knowledge. And on top of it is a great statue to Athena, holding her spear and shield and with the owl upon her shoulder. And as you arrive, you see scholars sort of milling about. You would gather they're scholars. They're women and men with various cloth about them, carrying great parchments, some of them even tablets of stone, talking among each other, scribbling notes. And you see a regal-looking woman in armor chatting with a man at the entrance to at the great doorway to this library. He has laurels in his hair, and he's chatting animatedly with her as you approach. The last thing you hear is he says, we just can't separate the wheat from the chaff.
As they were walking up there, I think Ligea, perhaps you have spoken to Charistus, but perhaps to Batir, just sort of looks at him like, I'm conflicted.
Conflicted? How?
Yes. On one hand, it seems like these farmers should be allowed to rant and rave about whatever it is they desire, but on the other hand, the things that they're saying are objectively wrong.
I have no patience for the dull-witted. If it were up to me, then they would all be sent away back to their homes and never allowed to exit until they either were made smarter by their own willingness to learn something of value, or until they perished under the weight of their ignorance.
Think of what would happen.
Responsible for the education of its citizens. And if these citizens are not educated, then it falls upon the queen. It's a responsibility.
You may be true, Batir, in what you say, for certainly these rubes have no hope of sustaining themselves without the strong hand of rulership to guide them out of the darkness and into the light.
Regardless of whose responsibility it is, the outcome must be addressed. Just think if one of those scrolls were to be found without context. How would one tell fact from fiction? How would one tell that they, writing their own stories, were drawing them from the ether and not from the records of humankind?
I see that look on you, Alecto.
I just think everybody has their own truth in their heart. And if we give them a chance, I think they'll see the truth and they'll know for sure.
Alecto, truth is by definition objective. Therefore,
your heart is
subjective.
So large with
pure, perhaps.
It's so pure. So pure.
But
Your Majesty, the gentleman's next to the Queen speaks up, and you notice he has sort of an accent of maybe the barbarians of the north, a little different. You recognize, maybe if you're well traveled as Gallic, and he says, "I told you that these were the scribings of Charistus, and here he is." And he holds a papyrus, and it has the same markings upon it that that you, Christus, made earlier down on the beach.
So specifically, he's with all of like my corrections and like the grading.
It seems to be an exact copy. And the queen looks and says, "Ah, heroes, your journey here was foretold by our oracles, although we knew not on the time or day of your arrival. Welcome."
Queen Everette, we are honored to make your acquaintance. Our ship was wrecked off your shores, and upon landing, we did find your guards under siege of farmers who want their fiction retained in papyrus.
Yes, I'm aware of this. Farmers have some problem. You see, our great library is blessed by Athena. It transcribes and creates a copy of any piece of knowledge transcribed to papyrus. And in ancient times, or even recent times, this was a fantastic event, because only, of course, the very knowledgeable who understand things like humors and the heavenly spheres would be able to put words to paper. But now anybody, it seems, is being allowed and taught somehow by some force to put their own words to paper. And well, I'll let Willem explain it. He says, we're overwhelmed. We can't keep track of what is truth and what not. I have had in my last few months and years to transcribe such ridiculous stories on the parchment that make no sense.
It's like you have an interdimensional network of sorts that is failing to live up to the promise of what it could be, and instead is being lowered down by the poor and dull minds of those who use it.
He says, well, I stay out of the politics of this, but yes, it is a problem for sure. My queen has asked me to sort through these stories. In fact, perhaps you could help. And you can tell he's looking at you with some questioning eyes. Like, he seems to honor you, but maybe he's not certain you are who you claim. He seems like a person who's maybe aware that legends don't always live up to the stories that come before them. He says, perhaps you could tell some of our scholars and our queen right here some story about yourself that would help, well, tell us who you are. Correct the record, so to speak. Who will step forward and answer his question? He holds a do they use feathers in Greece? I don't know. He holds a quill in his hand.
I established that we do.
They do now.
Apparently we do on the islands. He holds a quill in his hands and a sheet of papyrus, and seems ready to transcribe anything you tell him that he believes. Who will answer this challenge?
I bet here Nim will give you a story, though you may not like my story.
I, Ironbender Zenon, apostle of Hephaestus, shall tell you of my tale.
I, Choristus, will tell you the great truth of my own past.
And I, Electo, the pure-hearted daughter of Simi, will tell you of the woeful tale that brought me here.
I, a suasive-voiced Ligea, daughter of Calliope, and cursed by Demeter, will tell you my tale.
All right, and because Athena is very, she's received a lot of honor, and she has great respect for this librarian and her own torchbearer, this queen. She will grant some favor to Willem's ability to discern your stories for truth or lie. So this shall be another arts and oration, unless you choose to spend pathos to use another skill to tell your story.
Oh, that's a big target number.
What is
It's a big old 16 right there.
He seems pretty suspicious of your ability to tell a story. It's going to be a 16. Quite the challenge. And I'm going to say this is it's a sacred encounter. So I need to make sure I'm right about that. Sacred's the one where if you fail, you're going to lose. You're going to have to spend some pathos, I believe.
Oh boy.
I believe that's sacred.
Do it then.
So, clarifying question: Bond dice and chorus dice. What D are we rolling there?
Chorus are 1d6. I'm definitely going to call upon the chorus to back me up here. I need some backup singers.
I shall also call upon the chorus.
Yeah.
Are we
just gonna burn all
we are
five
all
of
going
them?
to call upon the chorus, I think.
So,
Right.
All right, you see scholars, you see craftsmen working in the library. Maybe
well,
even
that
one
was
of your
a-
oarsmen has followed you. You can choose
A rapid down to 0.
who shall step out to aid you
okay.
from our chorus.
Ugh.
Okay. I'm going to use my epithet.
Oh God.
All right,
This is,
they are just like you, the audience know. They are rolling. The way Agon works is we go from
My
who rolls
goodness.
the least
Oh, I
to who
like
rolls
that.
the greatest. These heroes have not.
You rolled a 16, and we're rolling. So you roll 1d. You roll your name die plus your domain die, and you add those together, and then and then you keep the epithet. I just have to remember because
Where's
Roll20
the
does
pause
this
menu?
for us.
I need to select easy mode.
You get into So you roll your name plus your epithet plus arts and narration.
Just so we are tracking this, the reason that number was so high was thanks to the die from Athena, which comes from our audience. So,
Great.
Oh, that's so nice of them.
had Hermes been ascendant, I believe this would have been about a 10. So,
Great.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And we keep the
that's-
highest 2 of all of the dice that we roll. So if you're rolling 2d6, it's actually impossible to succeed on this challenge. Which most of us are. I just want to point out, most of us are rolling like a d6 and maybe a d8. It's not actually possible for us to succeed, even with the chorus bond.
Perhaps this is one of those missions where
might
you're bound to lose,
just
and then
be
you
able
learn
to.
from this.
Yes.
Yeah, we'd have to also spend Divine Favor, because then that adds on separately. That's like a plus modifier.
That's a good one.
So basically, most of it's a pool, and you keep the highest 2 numbers and then add them together. And then there's certain other things that can add on top of that.
Yes.
I just think our pasts are so filled with woe that we succeed in telling our stories, but it damages us to tell them.
Yeah.
Now,
I don't know about the rest of you, but I want to hear these stories.
One thing
these
they
are gonna
can
be
do,
so
by the
good.
way, of course, they have their bonds with you, the audience, and they've used those up, so they can't sacrifice you, but they can call on their bonds to each other to defend themselves from harm if they choose. But those are limited, right? They like each other, but they're only so loyal. So let's hear it. Electo, I believe you step forward to speak.
So Electo, I will give a description of Electo because I don't think we know that yet. She is a young adult with light blue peplos for the gown that it's got many pieces to it, and she's got freckles that hang across her cheeks and her bare shoulders, and golden curls that are cut right below her ears. She carries a large net with her. And she steps forward, and as she does not see the parchment that has just been thrown about in a rush to get quills and parchment paper for these heroes' tales. So she steps forward and she states like, "I'm Electo the Pure-Hearted. I'm daughter of the island of Simi, as I do not know who my parents are and the island raised me. I come to seek and find the other childs, as these childs were stolen from their beds with no known monster or god or human who could do that. Anyone who had not seen the wax and wane of the moon 12 times, and those who had not seen more than 16 summers. And I just have seen 16 was it spared, and I will not rest till I find them. And as Electo is like stepping forward to plead, I believe Electo trips over this parchment that is just thrown about, and it kind of ends her story.
Yes, it's actually a mathematical equation that it's never been solved thanks to this moment. You step upon it. It's a mathematical equation that would have helped avoid many future problems like diseases, things like that. But sadly, you step upon it, you crush it, and the original copy of this parchment has been lost, so it is lost to all time. The scholars all breathe in, and they're outraged and amazed at your, how do you pronounce that term? Terminity? Is that the pronunciation? I'm going to go with it.
But I do take one pathos in embarrassment of telling my woeful story and then shaming the floor.
Yes. Who's next?
Ooh, we're tied. Christus, you want to go?
Sure.
Okay.
Charistus steps forward, a glint in his old wizened eyes, as he holds his staff aloft and says, "By Athena's wisdom herself, I will tell you of the time I was charged with taming the stallion of Agamemnon, and they sent me out there to ride him. But what they did not know is that I myself am not any old Charistus." And I pull off my chiton to reveal my glorious centaur form. "But I am stout-legged Charistus, a scion of Chiron, and I rode that stallion. I will show you how." And he grabs one of the soldiers by the scruff of his neck. "You, who are you?" And the soldier there, being basically ragdolled around, manages to get out the name of BP Phantom. And he says, "I rode the stallion like this," and he places BP Phantom on his centaur hindquarters, and he begins to buck around the room and sends BP Phantom, unfortunately, flying across and like straight into a pillar, and it's a rather unfortunate, bloody sacrifice to the gods that occurs as a result.
Oh God!
And as he notices this, Charistus all of a sudden stops and sort of looks around the room awkwardly.
Everyone was at first amazed when you hurled off your clothing and revealed what you were, but now they're horrified. You have a feeling that this BP Phantom was one of the favorite soldiers, who would buy drinks for the other soldiers and yet was friendly with the scholars. And many of them are weeping in this tragedy that has befallen him. They barely even heard the last parts of your story as they feared for his life.
His hoof is doing that thing where like the person's toe just kind of like goes back and forth awkwardly, and he just kind of sits down and he like just doesn't look at the mess that he made. He looks elsewhere.
May this BP Phantom be born into another life.
There's one on every island. Ligea, that's me. I'm the next one. Steps forward, and sort of a breeze plays about her as she's finally dry because they walked like 14 miles. Her hair recurled. Her chiton flowing in the breeze that you're not quite sure where it came from. And she begins her tale. She talks, "Once I used to live among these islands, in the rocks, the places where the ships are lost. I am the daughter of Calliope, and those of you may be aware that make me once upon a time a siren, the ones tasked with ensuring that the sailors never reach their destination. Our only mission in life. Until one day, Demeter decided to blame us for letting her wayward daughter wander off to the underworld and start dating the Lord of the Dead." And I think at that point, Demeter just like strikes her down. She just stops talking.
Yes, out of nowhere, I think a bird flies in with a pine bough and just jams it into your mouth.
Smacks her face.
Up until this moment, they actually seem to believe you and be sympathetic for you. But now with this symbol, they all look down nervously and realize you may have even angered Demeter.
It's fine. I'll get my wings back. She saunters back into the crowd. Gives someone the evil eye.
Should be nice to
Who's next? Can anybody tell a truthful story? These seem like lies to me, the queen says.
I should tell my
seems
tale.
concerned. Yes, Zenon.
I walked away from my parentage early on, for I resented the expectations of my of the god from whom I was spawned. But I found comfort as a prophet of Hephaestus. Studying in their temple, I learned to find joy in the fires of craft and building and work with one's hands. And I earned my epithet by protecting the temple from invaders by creating a fire so hot that we were able to bend the swords from the walls and use them to bolster the doors. But I feel that Hephaestus teaches me, as they will teach you, that it matters not from where you come, it matters the life you choose to build. And while Zenon is telling this story, they are building a fire as they do. It's kind of a thing, and the crowd sort of begins to get into it, like show us the bending, and so they start. A soldier comes forward and offers their sword as sort of a demonstrative object, but as the soldier bends forward to hand the sword over, the member of the audience, their chitin catches in the flames, and suddenly they are aflame. And this is taken by the audience as perhaps a sign that Hephaestus is not with his prophet at the moment, and that leaves Zenon quietly sort of in an emo state, like, it matters the life you choose to build, but I find myself lost in a valley with no building material to speak of. Just sort of wanders off. Leaves the fire there.
Just people are on fire. You just walk away.
Gods, she set fire to our people. What's she talking about? Where you're from doesn't matter. It's incredibly important in our society where you're from. It matters more. I mean, sure, you might accomplish some things, but where you come from and what you're made of is just what utter bollocks. Clear-eyed Bettier, they turn to you with suspicious eyes and seem outraged at what sound to them like lies, whether or not you speak truth. At least this one might tell us a true story.
I shall tell you a true story, for I am clear-eyed Bettier Nim, daughter of Medusa and Poseidon, follower of Hecate. And I shall tell you my origins. My mother, you see, was a follower of Athena and served her in a temple much like this. Yeah. Until one day when my father, Poseidon, coming in from the sea, glimpsed my mother and said through the ocean waves, "Hey, girl, hey." And my mother, upon hearing his dulcet tones, did come to the edge of her temple. It was the night shift and only my mother was there. And they were so taken with each other that they wrapped each other in their arms and did know each other that night. Athena, gray-eyed deceiver, looked down and seeing my mother's great beauty and being jealous of her coupling with Poseidon, did decide that night to curse her. And she cursed my mother, turning her golden locks into snakes, her skin into green scales, and churning her body into that of a snake, because she feared my mother's beauty and my mother's happiness. So, cursed, my mother went off and left her life as a follower of Athena, and did have and raise me. And we did live in peace for a time in different mazes and caves and other cavernous places, until heroes did come and break up our happy family. My uncle, the Cyclops, was tragically killed by many a hero. My brother Pegasus was stolen by a hero. And finally, one day, my mother, Medusa, was stalked and killed by the villain Perseus, who did decapitate her and now, still to this day, carries her head in a bag. And so I say a curse on Athena and a curse on Perseus, who I will personally kill myself and retrieve my mother's head so that I may bury her in one grave upon my return.
Wow. Wow. Everyone just looks at, they're like, really? Here in Athena's temple, you would proclaim that she was the wrong one in this story? You get the feeling people here love Perseus. They like have like Perseus embroideries on their like.
That Tyr had that moment is like, soon as she said it, she's like, oh,
whoops.
They're like
Read
shouting.
the room.
They're like, at least it was a little bit less problematic than the story we tell, but beyond that, it was a terrible telling of one of the most important stories of this place. Lies. The queen stands up and says, all of you clearly either worship intentionally or have been misled by Apate, goddess of deceit. I see that you are not heroes at all. You are villains. You are enemies of this place. Everyone shouts out in horror. The only way for us to even allow you to leave here alive is for you to prove yourself by turning against your chosen deceiver, Apate. Very well. Drop them, Willem. Willem turns sadly, and he pulls a small lever, which you recognize as a series of simple machines that have been ingeniously placed. And they drop the entire courtyard in which you stand, and you descend into what seems to be catacombs. Only these catacombs full of broken parchments and cobwebs and mice.
Have that lever.
Very well made.
I think
Can't believe I fell for the old lever trick again.
Do we
The
all not
scholars
pathos?
look
Your
down.
shield maiden is horse-faced!
The scholars look down, and they laugh at you. You all suffer your pathos for having lost this.
Yeah, it's
And they
fair.
say, we'll record the truth of your names, that you're all fools, idiots, and liars, unless, and the queen says, unless you rid my temple of the followers of Apate who have corrupted the place in the first place.
Are the followers, are those the farmers?
Do you ask that?
What do you mean?
You think simple farmers have the ability to stand up to the wisdom of Athena? They are my subjects too. They once provided parchment. They have been misled by somebody or something down there. Somebody replaces our scrolls, our true scrolls of truth, with those of lies. It's not just the farmers writing upon them. Someone with clear intent has corrupted this place, and it must be cleansed.
I see. They have a troll problem.
I hate trolls. Can you maybe make us a hammer for that or something, Zenon? I heard they're very effective against trolls.
And Zenon, one of Zenon's weapons is a hammer they've fashioned themselves that they call the Work. And so Zenon's just, I'm happy to work up any trolls we find.
Good.
This place, it's very far. It's like probably 50 horses tall that you've fallen in. I'm gonna make up random units.
I love it. Keep going. Do it.
50 horses.
50 Charistuses?
No, because Christus is slightly
Charistuses.
taller than an average
Right.
horse.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I guess if you do it by hands though, right? Because you go to the shoulder on a horse, and that's where like the centaur part, like that's where the human.
Does Carissus get taller when he rips his cloak? No, or he's just short.
It depends on
Is he
whether
more of a
he's like
pony?
invoking divine favor or not, I think.
Okay. You are, however, you see that before you seems to be a great labyrinth of sort of stone shelves that contain parchments. Clearly, the scholars must not come down here much because it's quite a mess. There's even like skeletons, or it seems like maybe scholars have been buried down here at times.
Important distinction. Is it a labyrinth or a maze?
It's actually a maze. There are multiple forking paths, not a labyrinth with a single path. But the Greeks discard such definitions. The original word they use could mean either. In our poor translation, we must distinguish. This is actually a maze.
My mother had a close friend that lived in a labyrinth.
I didn't know
Minotaur?
that.
Oh,
Well,
I met them once. He was nice. Also 8 people.
Yeah.
Well, Batir, since you got us into this mess, do you believe we should rid these people of their troubles down here?
I
Earn back
do.
their favor?
I do.
Very well.
We also
Because
still
if
need
we
a
do
boat.
not, then surely Athena will hear that I was talking ill of her, and then there will be the. I should not say things out loud sometimes.
I understand that feeling. The gods are... Looks around. The gods.
Yeah.
Yes.
Indeed.
Truly.
Long
Also,
may
we
they
do
reign.
still need a boat, and I feel like getting one from the queen will be much easier than building one from scratch.
I agree. Let us kill who is ever in this maze, and then we shall be on our way.
Or reason with them. Perhaps they would like to be a rower with us, perhaps.
We do
Oh.
need
Reason prevailed so
more.
well above ground.
Below ground, it's even better because the ideas can warm it within. And
Yes.
Oh, Electo.
You know, there is a certain logic there.
A couple things you've noticed, by the way. You feel that maybe down here that the fates have begun to bend a little more toward Hermes. Athena is still, of course, very ascendant in this place, but maybe Hermes was amused by your stories. Maybe Hermes believed you and sort of is maybe around a little bit. You also noticed maybe you didn't lose all the scholars. Maybe a couple of members in your chorus still left alive.
Some of them fell down with us.
Some of them, they
Yes.
were on the platform.
Whoops.
Wrong place, wrong time.
And the final thing you noticed, I remember Zenon is a rock hitting you in your very strong forehead. It doesn't really hurt you. It just bounces off, I imagine. And you see a large creature kind of laugh at you in an irritating voice and run off down one of the tunnels.
If I had a nickel.
Who will face the challenge of making it through this maze-styled labyrinth and with these creatures running about, taunting you and trying to provoke you into attack? These trolls, as other cultures might call them.
Clever-eyed Bet here will attempt to slaughter those she finds.
Very well. Will anybody else join her? Or...
Ironbender Zenon was despondent at the failure of the speech, but the gift that Hermes sent the inspiration of the rock from those trolls lights a fire in Ironbender Zenon, and they seem determined to tackle this foe, whatever the cost.
I, stout-legged Christus, scion of Chiron, have solved many far more difficult puzzles than that of a mere maze. I shall make this maze nothing but a footnote in the history of this island.
I, Electo, choose to instead support, as this is not a talking matter as soon as our friend got hit. So I will support Ligea because she is so good at killing.
I have technically murdered 0 people so far today.
That's not what your story said.
All right.
I said today. So a suasive voiced Ligea will use the tried and true tactic for dealing with trolls. I will ignore them. I will not give them the attention that they seek.
All right. It sounds like overall, this is a choice of blood and valor from all of you. Did anybody declare you're going to actually try to solve the labyrinth, or are you just using brute force?
I am using my craft and reason to solve the labyrinth.
You may choose to spend pathos to do that, but overall, what I'm hearing is a blood and valor attempt at this.
Oh yeah,
from
if
your
I
leader.
can capture a troll and shake it out of them, just the one.
These troll-like creatures seem irritating, but not too tough. However, they are in their best environment, a confusing place, full of dirt and mire. So they're disgusting, and they use that against you. It's not too much of a challenge. I think you might be able to. We'll see. But there's certainly enough to provide you some glory should you attempt to overcome this 11.
Okay. Well, I guess.
As you guys roll, I'll sort of explain that around
Do you
here,
have
down
bond,
here.
though? So, what's your blood and valor?
It's a D6, and I believe I use it by using nets. As you ignore them, I distract them with nets.
Why do you have so many nets?
I just have one very nice net.
Okay.
It's like there's like a long rope, and then there's a net at the end.
It's just it's nothing but net.
It's a fishing net that I use for big beasts and trolls.
Okay.
Did I hear you are using a bond? Are you using a bond with?
I didn't use a bond.
Okay.
I was being supported by Electo.
I'm using one of our muse bonds.
Okay.
And
good.
I'm using a
Perhaps.
bond with Charistus.
Excellent. All right. And I believe Sean would be a good bondsman for you. And let's see. I'm looking at for our rolls here. And okay, we've got some rolls. Has everyone rolled here?
I don't see mine.
No, yours hasn't come through.
That's
Did
weird.
you finish all the submissions?
I did.
Try it again.
Sometimes.
Reroll,
So,
reroll.
Evil, are you able to show them? Have you been able to show them these rolls, Lauren?
Yes.
They're on the screen.
Yeah, cool. Evil had built these very cool roll displayers.
They're very pretty.
Yes, and they
Much
built
good
in
art.
a lot of the math for us. So it's just when we fail at the UI, not when we fail at math, that we miss rolls. There we go.
right.
Excellent. So it looks like we are going to start to hear how this went for Ligea.
Not well. Ligea, ignoring is hard and against her true nature. Even though Electo is supporting, I feel like Electo is perhaps aggravating Ligea a little bit. As Ligea is saying, like, don't pay attention to them. They just want your attention. If you stop paying attention to them, and you're like, I'm throwing a net at them, and then you just start throwing a net, and then ultimately we don't even manage to capture one of them, and it doesn't go well. perhaps the two of us get separated.
Oh, I'll throw a net over here, and then I think Alecto just goes down a path.
Yeah, just no.
You attempt to ignore them, but they're just so irritating. So many of them. You do get separated in the darkness, and you suddenly find yourselves lost, both of you. Until we hear what happens from, let's see.
I believe stout-legged Choristus was next. And I do not care for trolls, and I do not care for the random approaches to solving these things. For I know the true way to solve any maze is to hug one of the edges of it and just go around all the possible ones. But to speed this up, I call on one of the soldiers who is down there with us. I grab him by the scruff of his neck. I ask him his name.
Sean.
He tells me it is Sean, and I say, Sean, I am going to go down the right side. You will go down the left side. And when one of us finds the exit, they shall call to the other, else we converge. And so I head down my side of the maze, going in every possible direction until we will resolve exactly how the exit is found. But I am successful, although I hear a blood-curdling scream from elsewhere in the maze where Sean has perished in his valiant effort to support me doing this.
Yes. You don't have to kill the audience members if you succeed.
Actually,
their names will live on in glory.
That's true. Because of your success, though Sean perished, his name shall, in fact, be sung in many a song, assuming anybody survives this adventure.
I believe that puts Ironbender Zenon up next. And Ironbender Zenon is drawing upon their bond with Choristus, so is taking advantage of Choristus's exploration of the maze to ascertain a way out, but does not go the full path just yet. For Ironbender Zenon received a bit of a call to action, if you were, carrying that stone that was cast in their direction. Seeks out one of the trolls that was ideally they hope it's the one that threw the stone. If there's an identifying mark, then they seek out the one that threw the stone. And Zenon draws deep and asks Artemis for inspiration to guide that rock precisely where it needs to go. And draws upon their knowledge, too, of craft and reason, maybe modifying the rock ever so slightly to ensure that the aerodynamics are optimal. And once all of these adjustments are made, takes stock, and Ironbender Zenon flings the rock and asks Artemis to guide it to its home.
You fling the rock, and you in fact feel you just feel like a rushing, as if a stag or some forest creature rushes past you. And the arrow flies with true aim. Just as a troll turns to call you some name, the arrow goes right into his throat and stabs him like right through the uvula. And he's unable to speak his insult as he dies upon the catacomb floor.
And with that, I follow the path out to follow Choristus the rest of the way out and leave part of my torch in thanks to Artemis for their guidance.
Yes. Betir. Nim.
Yes. Clever-eyed Betir, daughter of Medusa and Poseidon, follower of Hecate, prays to her mother, to the spirit of her mother, who spent many days in such mazes and labyrinths. And she says, "Mother, guide my hand as I traverse this maze, and tell me how I might get out and smite my enemy. And so with kind of a flourish, she sinks into and becomes a little bit more like the shadows, and lies in wait until a troll reveals himself to her. So she will wait for the troll to cross her path, and then suddenly her golden long hair starts to curl up around her head as the tendrils become snakes, and Batir's normally pale skin turns a darker shade of green as she spots and makes eye contact with the troll and freezes him in his tracks, and he is turned to stone. This accomplished, Batir relaxes and goes back to her former form and follows Zenon out of the maze.
Yes, you do in fact turn him to stone, where he is left for all time. Perhaps on some return eventually you'll run into it and reminisce about the trolls who've been turned to stone. In fact, this is so legendary, you believe this will be used for inspiration by some British fantasy writer someday, these trolls turning to stone. And it is enough for Ligea and actually, Ligea, you stumble upon this stone troll, which you have a good guess where it came from, and it helps you find your way out. Lecto, you are found by Sean on his way out, and he kind of turns you around and points you in the right direction before he dies.
The good guy, that's Sean.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
His praises be sung.
Batir receives the most glory for this, the full amount, which was 11. Those of you who also succeeded receive half that rounded up, and 1 glory for our failing Ligea. But still glory.
I get bond.
You survived. Most mortals would have perished. So important to keep in mind. You do find an exit, and by exit I mean you find the center, almost the opposite of an exit, but it's where all the trolls were headed. You name them trolls; they're actually giants, I believe. But there is something very troll-like in the center. You stumble almost all together into a center sanctum, where you see a few remaining of these giants like scribbling on the paper, just sort of rows and rows of them. And sort of just seems like they're writing down whatever they feel like onto it. And the center is a man in robes. He's very thin. There's mirrors all around him. There's smoke coming up. And you, although she's not a very well-known god, not many people speak her name. Certainly you've never met another worshiper. You do see signs you recognize of the signs of Apate, the goddess of deceit, daughter of Nyx, the goddess of night. And he looks up at you and he says, "So you've arrived." "I don't care. You might have arrived, you might not. You're too late to stop what I have planned here. Why, everything I've created is already out there. All I have left to do is to pour salt into the wounds." He laughs at you. And when he laughs, all the other creatures in the room laugh simultaneously. "Well, what do you intend to do? Kill me?"
Yes. That seems an expedient solution.
"All right. If that's what you wish to try, then we should do it with an audience. That way, people will actually have a story that's interesting to tell about you. And he steps forward into that glow, sort of the light that was coming from a pool. He steps into it and sinks into what looks to you, being heroes. You've probably run into portals before, into some sort of portal. He says, "I'll see you on the other side." And with that, I think it's time for a quick break. But first, let me see if I can do a little better job on Tiltify here. As we mentioned, we had from Sean, who perished in glory.
Glory be his name.
The lamenting story of our heroes must be rejoice. Yes, and our lamenting story of you, Sean, we must also rejoice. And Athena herself has apparently donated. I wasn't jealous of Medusa's beauty, dagnabbit, but I told, it's common, actually, in most, Homer always, Athena uses the word dagnabbit a lot in the, a lot of the translations.
That was the first recorded use of dagnabbit.
Yes.
But I told all my priestesses, no knowing anyone on the new credenza. Poseidon dripped all over everything too. I had to replace all the rugs. Never could get the smell out of decaying fish out of the place. Yeah, that is a problem with ocean gods in general. So thank you, Chorus, for all of that. And I'm going to check on our gods here. It looks like Athena is still ascendant, but Hermes still has a good chance of showing up here. So we will find out after a break.
Oh boy.
We'll be right back.
Bye.
everybody. We're back.
I'm obnoxious.
I was on 5, and then Claudia's like, I'm going to get a whole sentence in. You're
So, thank you guys for your donations for supporting Driftwood. Just a reminder, it's an awesome theater that it's close to Janine and I, so we actually visit them a lot to see shows. And
Fun fact, it was the first place I ever did a musical out in the Seattle area, so I'm very grateful to that theater.
Yeah. And thank you for joining in our chorus. Sorry if you die, but it's a great myth, so glory to your name. A couple things I just want to point out that are kind of neat about the system. You may have noticed that people are announcing themselves in different ways. In this system, you announce if I announce my sort of epitaph, or I decorate my name with various things, or I announce that I am of Hermes. Whatever I use, I'm bringing that die into play. It may cost me some divine favor or some pathos, or it's going to cost me something in that. The other thing we've talked a lot about is pathos, which, narratively is a little bit of suffering, a little bit of getting some audience sympathy on your side, but it actually does cost you. And I want to see where our heroes are. If they get to 6 pathos, they start to burn fate, which is bad. That's a permanent resource that you unlikely to gain back. If you run out of fate, you die. So where are you on your pathos here?
I only have 1.
I have 2.
Yeah.
4.
I'm at 4 too.
Okay.
I just have not been spending it.
I'm helping a lot. Helping
Or
you don't
failing.
get hurt.
Failing also helps you spend.
That's true.
Every time Batir calls her snake hair into reality, she loses a little part of her soul.
Yeah. And they're also accumulating glory. We've had 3 glory generating challenges, I think. So those who've succeeded have earned a lot of glory. Those who haven't have earned a little glory, but hey, they're still mythic, and there's still time because this Trollus priestess of Apate has just descended into a portal and perhaps invited you to join.
Wait. Before
Or
we
you
go
could
in.
flee cowardly back and live in the maze if you choose.
Yes, Electo.
You were saying, Electo.
I think we should possibly go in there. I just think that, as you said before, and I'm kind of catching up anyone who might have not been here, the queen needs to give us a ship. And so if we perhaps win this challenge, we'll get that ship.
Yes.
And then we'll help people
Mm-hmm.
and ourselves.
Electo, I've been waiting for the day when you would step forward like this and show the true grit that I knew you had inside yourself. I, too, am ready to stand with you against whatever lies on the other side of that thing.
Yeah, what is that?
Globes.
The truth is hard work. And I hold up my hammer, which is named work. And I'm ready to do the work.
Oh.
Work.
I, Batir Nim, seek respite from these.
And to be clear, you are not
Pale
formally challenged yet. So
No, I'm just being dramatic.
Just being dramatic.
yeah, just making sure.
I face the portal.
Being
I am
mythological.
Let us face down this challenge. They are nothing compared to us.
Right? You so you step into the portal. And in fact, find yourself on top of the large dome on top of the library. Athena's mighty statue towers above you still, about let's say 15 horses into the air. And you see Trollus sort of laughing and standing before you at the beginning. And he somehow has the queen within his grasp. And you hear cheering below, and you see that the farmers seem to have, while you were down there, poured into the city. And they are destroying things and looting. And he laughs. He says, so you did decide to join. Very well. I shall kill you, and no one shall remember you, because there shall be no knowledge after this day. So this
Then
is
why
beginning
did you want an audience?
for the enjoyment of it, so that people's very lives are ruined before their very eyes.
You're just insecure.
We will see about that. We'll see who has a reason to be insecure. You think it's me? I'm not insecure at all. I won't be when this statue is replaced with a Pate statue, will I?
We can't let that happen. Just like make right.
I feel like Betty.
Right.
Oh,
That's-
yes, of course. The
Looking
gods.
at Batir. Right?
No, we shall stand against you, foe,
Oh,
and
let's-
free
let us
these
see.
followers of Athena.
So they're about to enter a battle, and the way battles work, a little different. It's going to be a series of 3 contests. So just explain the way the system works. They're going to try to presumably get advantage, in which they can kind of choose what domain they want to try to accomplish something in. Whether or not they get advantage, they will have to choose whether they defend or try to seize like control of the combat, and then there will be a final combat, which we determine whether our heroes are triumphant or fail utterly. So who will join this attempt to gain advantage in this combat and find some way to do so?
I, Ironbender Zenon, will continue the banter, for it seems this enemy is off their balance.
Will anybody else?
I, stout-legged Charistus, Skada, scion of Chiron, in the name of Apollo himself, will bring reason to this madness.
I, the pure-hearted Electo, will reason with this madman and perhaps talk him down from this stoop with the domain of resolve and spirit.
I, a suasive voice Ligea, know this kind. I will call upon my divine favor of Aphrodite. I know what will distract him, and I will use it. I have lured many a man to their death.
Very well.
And I, clever-eyed Batir Nim, daughter of Medusa and Poseidon, will ask Hecate to lend me her magics in order to subdue this enemy.
Maybe out of insecurity, you can tell that he's declared for Apate, and Apate doesn't get many people declaring for her, so she's probably at hand. However, you feel that you have taken the side of Athena in this competition versus Hermes, who probably would have favored giving that knowledge maybe more to the farmers and letting them decide their own fates a little more. You chose Athena, and lucky for you, Athena is ascendant. So each of you is going to get, in one of these next 3 contests, a chance to use Athena's aid as an extra D12, thanks to the audience. And thanks to you for choosing the same side as the chorus. So just, you've got that available. But Trollus of Apate struts around the dome looking for sort of a favorable position. But, you know, he's more used to lying than actually like thinking things through logically. He sort of picks a point directly under Athena, like in her shadow. And that's a 10.
All right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. All right, let me get these on the screen for you all.
I should have declared. I always forget that at this point. I'm like, I should have declared more things. You can only use what you declared.
Should have said
before we
more.
know what the
Should have said
roll.
more. So I brought Aphrodite into this one. It's because, you know.
Yeah.
She's a pretty lady.
All right. I see 2 of our rolls. So I see 3 of our rolls. I see 4. All right. That looks like everybody. Am I right?
I'm trying.
Wait, one more.
Zenon, let's hear what happened here upon this dome.
Zenon steps forward and says, "Don't you owe us a debate? Don't you need to help us figure out, air all of the perspectives? You seem to think that Apate has the superior hand, but what about our conflicting claims?"
He seems to relish being called into a debate. He says, "Yes, climbing down to the mud with me. I will ignore your points and throw whatabouts at you all day." He stands triumphantly underneath Athena's statue, mockingly. It looks like
I think Electo and Charistus are tied.
But I believe
Zenon.
one in between.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Betty or Nim.
Betty or Nim.
Yeah, Betir's next. Betir steps forward and calls upon Hecate to bless her with the magic to smite this foe. And then she, in her moment of calling her magics forth, realizes that she's been also that Athena is watching, and she just feels really weird about it and kind of falters, and instead of like throwing magic at her foe, she ends up kind of shocking herself, and then she feels real bad because Athena was watching.
Yes, he laughs at you too as you stumble over your words and says, perhaps I'm already winning. It's all right. Back away from me. Dare you even face me? I doubt it. I may not have titles to my name, but I'm equal to you just by defying you. Who is next?
Stout-legged Charistus struts along around the arena, and he realizes the truth that only when wisdom prevails will we all prevail. And with that, he notices that some of the giants have fallen through the portal as well. And he realizes the truth that wisdom is attained on the shoulders of giants. And he holds aloft his staff, and by Apollo's grace, he slams it into the ground, and a dazzling light stuns the giants. And Charistus quickly canters around the arena, pulling up different farmers and putting them up on the shoulders of the giants, not understanding that it is a metaphor. And as the giants eventually come out of their bedazzlement, those farmers quickly fall off of them and are trod to death.
Yep.
Yes. The farmers scream out, and the farmers down below look up and say, "What is Charistus doing? He's not our hero at all."
Electo, the pure-hearted. Oh, that's fine.
Wow, we have a lot of suffering here.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Electo, the pure-hearted, steps up, and though is not quite one for debate. Where she personally believes that how you feel is if you start you win a debate, I guess. So she goes and debates, and then immediately gets sad about it. And because one of her ideas aren't correct. He said it in such a mean way. He must be right. So the poor young Electo says, "I will have to do more research because I don't have exact facts yet."
There, poor young Electo. There is no truth. You can just make your own truth. Make up whatever you want, and that is what is correct. And soon everyone will know that.
Real.
While he engages in this debate with Electo, Ligea is not appearing to pay attention to him. She stands at the tallest point on top of the dome and looks out across the crowd of soldiers and various farmers and just sort of takes like one shoulder of her chiton and just sort of drifts it to the side, showing off some collarbone, and like pulls up a little bit, showing off some ankle, and she's like, "Hello, boys." And all of them turn and give them her attention. And she's so clearly using her body to get the views. How could she do this? And Team will undoubtedly become incensed.
Yes, he's outraged. Like, no, don't pay. You're just paying attention to her because she's a woman. Women have unfair advantages over me. And he's so upset, he steps off the high point of the dome and trips and slides down a little bit before picking himself up, giving you a chance to seize the high ground on this dome.
And I take 10 glory. And all the views.
Nice.
Both like scholars and farmers, women alike, laugh, and they just they realize how ridiculous these like roles seem to be, in spite of their danger, and that maybe they're a bit emboldened, not just themselves, but in their own lives. You have a feeling like this moment will be brought up to win arguments in the future. And sort of just to mock those who attempt stupid arguments. You, just by the nick of time, it seemed very dark, and then this last moment, thanks to Ligea, you, who gains the glory for this, everyone else won glory. Ligea, you have gained for the group advantage. That means in this next part, you are going to have a 1d10, which you can use, advantage dice. So that'll be available for you. However, the fight is not even yet begun. Trollus picks himself up, and the very trolls he said that Christus had sort of pulled over, he looks at them and says, "Seize the queen and kill her." And then he holds up a torch, and you see all the other farmers hold up their torches as well. They almost seem enthralled by him. I'm going to advance toward the library, threatening to burn the library to the ground. And he says, "After I kill you, I shall curse this island. It shall become a place of disknowledge. It shall spread whatever we want across the Greek Isles, across the world, and there will be no truth anymore. There will be only lies. All I have to do is do away with you, and all these things shall come to pass." He laughs. So, just for those you watching, he's made 3 threats. Our heroes are going to have a chance now they can defend, which gives them a chance to defend against one of these threats, or they can attempt to seize advantage, and in which case they get to kind of pick the domain of the final fight. They need to kind of do all those things to achieve the most heroic outcome.
And can we summarize the 3 quickly?
Yes, they are. He's threatened to kill the queen, to burn the library, and to sort of release disinformation, to curse this place into the world. So, it shall forevermore be a thing in the world if nobody stops him from doing this. So who will rise to either defend or try to seize control of this coming fight?
Do we know what the domain is for the seize or the defend? That's the thing that
you
decide.
You get to choose because you got the advantage.
Oh.
Had you lost that last fight, Trollus would have gotten to decide. And don't forget, you have one chorus member available to still help you out.
I think Ligea would probably seize.
I, stout-legged Christus, scion of Chiron, will not see harm befall a tome of knowledge such as a library. I shall defend it, and I shall do so with the aid of a muse.
Well, who else shall meet this challenge?
I, Electo, have decided that a person is more valuable than books or future information land, as I call it, dissolution man, whatever. So I will protect the queen from as best I can, because no death is worth death.
And you don't have to yet decide what you defend, because you might the circumstances
we
may change.
resolve the defend and then we resolve the seize.
You merely decide defend or seize for now.
Yeah. Clever-eyed Batir will defend.
All right, we have 3 defenders.
And Ironbender Zenon will help seize.
I, Suasive voiced Ligea, will screw this guy. I don't like him. I want him to keep feeling bad about himself, so I'm going to seize.
Great. He is going to since the chorus has given some to Hermes. I believe he's going to take advantage of the farmers who, though not in great number, are going to give him a little bit of benefit in this fight. To acknowledge the tithing we've seen to Hermes, who might like maybe not Apate to come out on top. Hermes would probably like to see these farmers get more of a fair deal. So he is going to roll that in, and this, here we go. And it's a 12. It's he's making good on his threats. Ooh. The trolls approach the queen. How does this play out?
Do we want to roll defend or seize first?
We do defend first and then seize, I think.
Okay.
I mean, you've all declared, so I think you can all roll at once, but...
I think it makes more sense to resolve one and then resolve the other, just to keep it simpler.
Yeah, so let's have our defenders roll.
Okay. Should we say all the things that we're using then?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll roll, and then you can narrate it.
Okay, cool. I'll do that.
I got the image on them. Sorry, I was distracted.
You see down below, the scholars are kind of struggling with the farmers. It's not yet gotten violent, but it's approaching that quickly. The trolls are descending. The farmers are descending on the library with the torches. The queen seems at risk. She's being approached. And Trollus is he's making some prayer at the foot of Apate, which you imagine is his, or at the foot of Athena, you imagine is his corrupting curse he's casting. All right, do we have rolls?
Sorry.
We're missing one.
I have a roll from Stout Like a Charistus. I have a roll from Batir. Who is our third defender?
Electo.
It is me. I am... There we go.
Ooh,
all right.
Wow. Holy moly. What'd you spend?
So, Batir Nem, let's hear you suffer in your attempt to defend. What do you attempt to defend?
Batir turns to defend the queen, and she realizes she sees her, she's quite a bit away from her, and so she starts to run towards her and, draws her knife. But just can't get across the swarms of people to her, and she's kind of inhibited by the people around who are starting to panic.
Yes, you are too slow, and you see the trolls grab her and drag her to the ground. They pull out long knives, and if nobody else defends her, it looks like she may meet her demise. We have it looks like Charistus, you are also defending?
Yes, I refuse to see a library be destroyed. So I hold my staff aloft, and I call out to Athena, and I say to her, in the name of Apollo, I beseech you, help me protect this shrine to your wisdom. And as the skies momentarily part, a parchment flutters down towards me. I immediately grab it, and I take it, and I show it, and I invoke my bond with Zenon, and I say, Zenon, I need this built immediately. And she is able to craft for me a gigantic horn through which one may make great sound. I place, using my incredible centaur strength, I am able to place this horn where I now pull up one of the soldiers, and I ask him, "What is your name?" And he says, "I am Dema, son of Lishan." And I say, "I need you to persuade these people the value of books. Repeat after me into the horn. Butterfly in the sky. I can fly twice as high." And I get him to sing beautiful dulcet tones that spread over the farmers so that they may know the value of reading, what it may bring to them. And unfortunately, the power of this incredible mythical artifact that has been created, the energy from it surges into Dema, son of Lishan, and he bursts into a cloud of sparks and smoke.
But the sparks look like butterflies.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
Yes, between Zenon's whirl, like amazing construction of this horn, and Emma's the mellifluous voice, like spreading out, even as he gives up his corporal form to become a true butterfly, the farmers do slow, and they look down at their hands, and they say, "What were we doing? We wanted to have control over knowledge, not to just." Why, we respect not. We need to know when the crops should be planted, when the weather should change, and a proper amount of bloodletting is probably good for our children. And they stop, and it seems like perhaps the library has been saved. We have one more defending roll from Bettier, right? No, from Electo.
Correct. Electo, seeing the carnage and focusing on the queen, knows that without the queen, the island would fall. So she calls upon Athena for grace and wisdom and for what to do. And Electo, daughter Simi, looks up and sees the Athena statue and realizes that she could stop perhaps one death, and so she throws her net up to the statue and actually pulls it down, but in that pull separates the two, queen and the follower of Apate, saving the queen hopefully. And then as she stands as distraction, as Aphrodite has given divine favor to distract him, Apate, so that he may not act quickly when Athena's statue fell upon.
So you pull the mighty, like this mighty Colossus-esque statue down with your net. I would allow, if you want to pull that whole statue down, I think you could, but you would have to burn a piece of fate. This would be like a truly amazing accomplishment that like would be known about across the world for like time. It would be like one of the things that would always accompany your name, be the destruction of the great statue of Pallas on this library. Is that what you would like?
Yeah, let's do it. This is what it takes to save the queen. And
I feel like there's a different way you could save the queen, but all right.
No, there's only one path. Athena has given us her moment of wisdom to look up at her statue and realize Athena can solve her own problems. So I will take this point of fate, which it does mean I get
a boon.
A boon, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could add the epithet, like destroyer of statues.
Yeah,
I will add another epithet.
Statue destroyer.
Color of katanas.
I will figure that out next statement.
So you hurl the net and you pull, and at first it seems ridiculous. And then for a moment, you all swear the statue turns to life, and you see Athena herself appear and look down. She looks straight at you, and you finally have her attention, her direct attention, and she looks down at the queen who has served her and her worked for her. Her family has served her for years. And the statue crumbles, and the stone seems to form into the shape of her spear, goes downward, and falls, spearing the entire team of trolls, of giants who surround the queen, saving her life, knocking their long knives asunder. It's a truly glorious moment for you. Everyone will talk about this with amazement for forever. No matter should you die this day, Alecto, you shall always be known as the woman who brought down Athena to the earth itself with her net.
Wow.
But you do burn fate. You feel yourself growing like closer to that final trip with Charon. So beware of that. So you have defended against the burning of the library and against the killing of the queen, but nobody has stopped no one defending stopped Trollus from corrupting, and now with the statues gone, he's able to finish his prayer, and you just feel you feel like a leaking of words from the parchment all around just descend in the clouds, and you know, no matter what you do this day, from this day forth, there shall always be those who bring false information and lies to corrupt knowledge.
We're so close.
Dang.
However, you still have a chance to seize control of this combat and stop worse things from happening. So let's see how those two final rolls went.
Right.
Are you supporting me or were you rolling?
I'm rolling.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to double check. All right.
And
so...
did we get to choose what we're engaging on, or
for this
each
one
of us, or just for
I think we each get to choose.
I think you each get to choose.
Okay.
Because of your success.
Target numbers.
And is the target
12.
roll different?
No, I think we'll use the same target.
Okay.
All right. Oh no, I'm definitely using.
I
am a suasive voiced.
Yeah.
I am definitely Ironbender, and I.
You know what? I'm gonna throw a little pathos in there for some craft and reason.
I am going to use pathos for
some
resolve and spirit.
Alecto, I've never seen such a thing in the many years that I have been here. That one of such small form as yourself could
not good.
Do such. I believe I may have misjudged you.
Well, it is. I appreciate, but you know what they say about strong limbs in small packages. I believe I now understand that it is not about the girth of your muscles, but perhaps your form that could provide lifting if necessary.
It's not
Ligea, now is your chance to attempt to seize control of this combat.
Ligea realizes, I think, that she sort of set herself up as this kind of epicenter of attention, and she sort of tries to move away, and the crowd keeps watching her, and she's like, maybe I'll go over here, and then they keep watching her, and so I think she finds herself in the position of being unable to shake off the viewers, so to speak. She can't turn off. It's just personality's always on, so she is unable to engage with Trollus, who she must trust in the abilities of Zenon to see this through.
Yes, you fail. Trollus seems to be coming ever closer to absolutely controlling this final fight, and now we have, is it?
It's Ironbender Zenon,
yes.
And so Ironbender Zenon takes everything in and is incensed by Trollus and his actions, and that penetrating feeling disinformation, and there's a moment of agonizing darkness as for a moment it seems like it's not worth fighting, but in that moment Poseidon grants a moment of fortitude to redouble Zenon's strength, and at that same time a wave of wisdom passes over Ironbender Zenon, and they realize that the only way to defeat this hatred, this misinformation, is as a collective, is as a community. And so Ironbender Zenon draws upon all of the reason they have and brings it to the collective and says, we can create a shared space together. All of your journeys have meaning, and together we will be greater than the whole. This one troll does not define your life's experience, nor does any action that has preceded this moment define you. Choose your path forward, but let us choose it together, for we are better together than we are apart. And as a collective, they just sort of do a Truman Show, kind of like curling it like a big great circle around Trollus. You have no power over us.
Yeah, they people all over the city hear your words. The horn you built is still near enough that it sends your voice echoing off the walls. Everybody is changed by this, and he loses his control over the people. He stumbles for a moment, and he seems lost. He seems confused himself. Like he himself doesn't know what's true anymore. He's lied so much, and he stumbles back. But he has still brought a Pate here. Her presence is felt very strongly. He seems to shift, and you can't quite tell. He casts reflections of himself all over, but he's lost enough that you, Ironbender Zenon, are going to have a chance to choose how you enter this final combat. He's lost the ability to make that decision.
Do we choose now, or do we wait until we see the environment?
I think you are going to get to basically decide what that environment is because you've seized control of this. He will get to respond how he chooses, but you sort of set the ground for this final confrontation with him.
We shall engage this final combat with no misinformation. We shall combat reason to reason, person to person.
Wonderful. So you're going to use craft and reason, it sounds like, all of you. Now, you should know this is an epic combat because Apate is here, has empowered him. She's not fully here. So you are going to have to spend pathos to even enter this competition against him, should you choose. You have to spend one pathos.
I will.
Who will?
When you spend pathos and it ticks into your fate track, do you immediately get the boon?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, if you mark agony, so you have to mark your first fate, because there's a dot in it. I think it's as soon as you mark a square with a dot, you get the boon.
Cool.
Okay.
And you experience, just as you face up, you feel that you're not just up against a mortal on his own here, that there are divine forces against you. Athena's down occupied with the queen, so you're truly on your own here against somebody empowered by a god. Who will face this?
I, a suasive voiced Ligea, will face down Trollus. He may be full of pomp and wind, and I will tear the air out of his sails like I have done to many a ship. With my words. Metaphorical tearing.
Ialecto, the pure-hearted, will use my pathos of adding resolve and spirit to try to bring, emotions into this reason contest, because I believe that all reason has a backing of deep feelings to defeat this Apate.
That makes sense.
Choristus is tired. He can feel the weight of this adventure on him, and it has brought him to a point of agony. But in spite of it, he places his staff down and says, I, stout-legged Choristus, scion of Chiron, in the name of Apollo himself, will not see wisdom lost to this land.
I, clever-eyed Batir, will call upon my father Poseidon to harden me to this task as I attempt to outsmart Trollus.
I, Ironbender Zenon, and like there's this weight, this weariness on her on them as they speak, and shall take on this foe on behalf of all who have suffered at the hands of those who worship fiction over dignity. And as they step forward, they feel the fires of Hephaestus increase their reasoning skills beyond anything that they've had before. To find themselves thinking through new edges of their consciousness as they walk into the fray.
All right, all have entered. You're setting the field here. So Trollus currently has sort of reflected himself into a myriad of Trolluses, all of whom are starting to kind of get it back together and pull out different sorts of weapons and take different stances. It's incredibly unclear how he's even going to fight you and which one's the real him. And all of them begin to shout at you as his curse spreads across the land, seems to give him some power. So, I should have rolled this ahead of time. This is Craft and Reason. It has to be a tough fight. He has rolled a 15 in spite of your efforts, Pates, to truly want to, like, this is her one chance to really get something back at Athena, and he has granted her a great boon by releasing this curse. So let us see how our heroes do.
I believe we have a D10 that the chorus has granted us, and we also have one because we won the first round.
Yes.
So I was going to utilize the one from the first round as the person who did the sexy.
Yes.
Fair.
I'm also going to spend Pathos to roll my arts and oration because that's better.
Yes. All right, let's see those rolls.
Wait, I don't think I can.
The support, if we draw
do this.
And we have do we have corresponds left?
We have one.
I would like to use the correspond.
All right,
yes.
Do it.
Can't use our friend bonds, but we roll our name dices. So you get a D6
so
from
close,
me
so many times.
Woo!
All right.
Okay, so if I'm drawn on the chorus, that's 1d6. And if I am also going to draw my bond with Electo, who inspires the heart. So I will pull that. So that's 1d6 plus 1d6, the chorus plus. Okay. And then I shall call upon my honored god of Hephaestus. So we will do that. Ugh.
Sometimes you
we
just
missing any rolls here?
whiff. No, I think that's everyone.
Here. Is that
I think that's everybody. All right, let's hear from Electo.
Electo, the pure-hearted, gathering the Zenon's cry to everyone rallied her, and she used that as well, along with resolve and spirit. Stands up, takes that pathos from emotionally letting herself into this argument, and also for even stepping into this and feeling the weight of this, just realizes she is young, she is not experienced enough, and it crumples under the weight of this, the ramifications of anything she might say, and falls to her knees as she is unable to fight.
several reflections around you laugh, mock you, and mocking laughter that you will hear long after this day. Sometimes when you're having trouble sleeping, you'll hear his voice laughing at you.
Ironbender Zenon tries to think her way around this problem. Surely there is a way to look at all the mirror images and just discern which ones of them are the greatest threat. But there are so many, and they are so overwhelming that they are paralyzed by the options and second guessing and what fire does one put out with so much badness in the world? Where does one go to start with the reason? And that, combined with the exhaustion from the victory in the previous round, it sort of causes Zenon to drop to their knees, panting in a little bit of a dark place.
He feeds on your confusion. It seems as if he gains great power from you giving up in the face of everything he's thrown at you, all the confusion. Each reflection seems to grow a little bit taller with each of your confused gasps.
And there's in the process of trying to get through that darkness, turns to grab one of the assembled farmers to reach out for reason and comfort, but is grasping around so blindly in the dark that they knock that person senseless.
I need emotional support. Bam!
And never actually manages to grab the comfort of another human.
Yes, one of the chorus members has actually scaled the entire library to join you on the dome, and just as they reach over and triumphant music plays, as your hand hits them and pushes them backwards, and you hear them scream as they fall into the smoke below.
Tragic.
All right. Wow.
Ligea is tired, and it's not the same exhaustion of pathos that's experienced by Zenon and by Charistus. It is the sheer exhaustion of being a woman in this world. She has endured the catcalls and the whistles from all of these individuals because she dared show collarbone. And all she can do is think back to when they used to do that. Those sailors on those ships sailing over the vast ocean, and then she would lure them to their deaths. And she misses it. And she is sad. And she curses Demeter, and once again a bird flies into her face, and she's grappling with cursing Demeter.
Yes, you're saddened by all this. And he grins at you with a weird vision of a day when it should not be women of the ocean who harass men, but men who harass women on their venues of travel. And he laughs at that. It gives him some great enjoyment that shall come to pass. All's very dark, seems lost. Charistus
looks among his fellow heroes and sees them flagging, and he knows that this cannot be how it ends, and he will use his bonds with Alecto and Ligea in order to bring them up so that we may all face this threat. And he knows that wisdom is the only means by which any of us can hope to prevail. The weapons will not be the thing that he can use in order to end this, but he knows he can use the power of his mind and the power of his words. And he turns to Alecto and he says, Alecto, you must not despair. Stand. There is much more to you than there is to you. You must follow that and believe in it. Ligea, now more than ever, I need you to bring the sexy so that we can gather these people and show them the light. And he raises his staff aloft and summons Apollo's strength to him and says, Apollo, show them the truth. And light emerges from the head of his staff, and just for a moment, the serpent on the staff, you could, if you were looking at it, imagine that it were animated and brought to life. And as the light spreads out to all of the points of the stars in the heavens, even though it is daytime, they are visible now. And he calls out, "Look, people, the celestial sphere cannot be flat. It wouldn't be a sphere if it were flat. Just, you can see it. They're up there moving." And they...
Yes, in fact, the light of Apollo does find this place at last, and Apollo appreciates Eucharistus bringing him here, for his domain is knowledge, as well as Athena's, and Apate is the daughter of Nyx, the knight. So he is twice emboldened to grant you this boon, to help you bring some light of knowledge. And everyone looks up into the heavens and says, yes, what were we thinking? That's ridiculous that it would be a series of discs carrying the stars around. It's clearly a series of spheres carrying the stars around. And they are given this wisdom. Trollus cries out, and several of his reflections disappear, but 3 remain. They stand triumphant, still unabashed and unashamed by their failure. Batir.
Clever-eyed Batir Nim strides forward and calls upon her father Poseidon to give her strength in this time, as she wields a storm of magic to educate the people. And she says, "Dear people who would fall into Trellis's grasp, there is a remedy I shall teach you to guard against him, and this is knowledge of the 10 logical fallacies that I shall hereby show thy gods which represent." And so she pulls up the 10 symbols of the gods that are behind me, and she says, "Lo, and do know that the protection against the straw man fallacy is Apollo, for he knows what is true in their hearts." And she goes through each of the logical fallacies in this way, ending with "an ad hominem, and you will know him by association, and thus Dionysus is the best remedy, for when you drink you forget your associations." And thus she goes on. It's quite lengthy, but she feels like at the end of it, everyone has a good understanding of like proper logic and debate etiquette, and that she has hopefully undone the poor arguments of Trollus in this way.
He seems diminished, and he cries out in insecurity and says, "No, you can't defeat me!" And he reaches down and pulls up the queen, and he stabs her in the face over and over. But quickly everyone realizes it's merely a straw representation of the queen. He's not attacking the actual queen. He's merely pathetically attacking a scarecrow. And the farmers drop their torches. The scholars stop fighting the farmers, and they say, "Of course, we weren't even disagreeing about the same things, really. We were just... I wondered what a fallacy was. We need to document that. Knowledge shall reign supreme. No more shall ignorance control us. We shall become civilized people. Kill him." Everyone rushes and tears apart Trollus into small pieces and feeds them to the dogs of the city. That he may
That was
never
satisfying.
besmirch them again.
I like a good mauling.
You have achieved glory, especially 2 of you in that final combat, but all of you have achieved glory. You have saved the queen, you've saved the library. You didn't prevent the curse. Disinformation shall plague you forevermore, I'm afraid. It shall manifest itself in other islands, other places. A man named Alex Jones shall be born someday in the future. But you save the rest, and this island shall stand as a beacon. The queen tells you all these things, except for the Alex Jones part. as she grants you, after a couple of days of being feted and fed, and your people being outfitted, to a place on the beach where they have a ship that awaits you, an unnamed trireme, and oarsmen to join you, half farmers and half scholars who have wanted to go maybe get out and see the world. You don't get the sense that the conflict is completely gone between them, but the scholars seem a little more willing to actually listen to the farmers, and the farmers seem to be willing to listen to a little bit of the wisdom now that Apate's influence has been lessened. So all of them, though, farmers and scholars alike, shout your names as you lead. Willem is carefully writing down all the details, and as you walk away, he continues to follow after, asking to make sure he got things right, because it's very important to him to get them correct, so that he may take his stories of Greece back to Gaul one day. Congratulations. We shall start here. Perhaps you shall name your great ship before our next adventure. Lauren, I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for all of your wonderful donations. Thank you for being here and hanging out. This is, for anyone who's curious, the system that we are playing is called Agon. It is by Evil Hat Games. There is a link to it in chat, and it is available. I don't think it's currently shipping yet because the Kickstarter wrapped like some time ago, but you can get the PDF version of it. Is currently available. It is a very fun system. It's all about telling these big mythic heroic stories and tales. But with that, I will have everybody just sort of sign off, say who they are, where they can be found, if you are unfamiliar with who they are. And then we will be back next week for another episode. We're going to be doing a 3-shot, so triple shots. That's how I like my lattes. Let's start with Charistus. Or Dan. You go by either name. Your character's
I'm Dan Poslins. I'm at Dan Poslins, and I was playing Charistus tonight. Stout-legged.
We'll go up to Janine.
I'm Janine. I go by at Admiral Asma on Twitter. You can follow me there. And I've been playing Batir Nim.
Cheryl?
Hi, everybody. I am Cheryl Platt, a.k.a. Muppet Aphrodite, or known as Ironbender Zenon for this broadcast. You can find me at Muppet Aphrodite on Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, whatever. And you can see me in Unexpected Productions shows or on Twitch at 10 a.m. on Sundays.
Electo, Claudia.
Hi, I'm Claudia, but on Twitch and Twitter, I go by Jackie Dash, Jakidash. And I have been Electo, who is now pure-hearted and strong-limbed.
Ooh,
yes.
Very nice. And our
Love
Strife player.
Oh, yeah.
The avatar
I was the Strife player tonight. Thank you for joining us and being our chorus citizens of Twitch. The honor is yours to carry these stories forward. I am at Tiny Beeman. You can on Twitch, you can kind of find me at Unexpected Productions a lot, along with a lot of the rest of the cast. So check that out. It's twitch.tv/Unexpected Productions. And on everything else, I'm at Tiny Beeman. So thank you.
And I'm Random Tuesday. This is my channel. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. We will be back next week with another episode, and this episode will be available on VOD and eventually on YouTube. I have been very unreliable at that, but I'm going to try and get better at it. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.